No, get started. I'm
That's a good place to start this recording.
Well, yeah, I don't want to take a lot of time, but it's always
That's
good to
funny.
get together. Couple of quick items, and we'll catch up with the others. I had a little bit of an agenda on, so I just quickly want to go through one. Boy, everything changes. Originally, I had on here strategies for future environmental actions. And the intent back then was that when 250 Water Street became an issue about brownfield development, it became very gray, but it really is a land use issue. Here's a developer coming, they've applied for this program, voluntary, and the concern that I've always had is land use. I don't want, there's zoning in there that this board fought very hard to put in place, and the more you open up that zoning book, the more you get supplies that you don't want. And I didn't want them to go, headlong into potentially going to BSA or something, so I just wanted to make sure we were okay, that we're clear. Until things change, and everything's subject to change, we'll still continue with them as a land use issue. They came and presented, by the way, at the Seaport Advisory Group last week, and they brought their consultant in, a woman who is a professional with Langdon.
Langdon.
She lives in CB1. Man, as smart as they come. And it was the second time I'd seen her do the presentation. Boy, it was very, they're getting better at it. But it brought up a couple of points which I asked, we had discussions about. This has become an issue, the brownfield. And then she went into how many other brownfields are in CB1. We never knew about. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And we probably never will. I mean, unless you go into a program like the brownfields, if you're as of right within a certain level, you do what you do. She brought up, which I was shocked at, and we probably pass by it every day, 70 Vestry Street.
Oh, really? That's a site?
That's a brownfield
No
site.
way.
Yeah.
That
So-
doesn't surprise me, though.
No, it doesn't. And you know what? I brought this. She even said, "Look, a huge part of CB1 is landfill, and there's many sections were old warehouses. We're still zone manufacturing
Yeah.
in many cases. So it's nothing to be surprised of." But that was the first item on that one. The second item was, I'm always a nice parliamentary procedure. I told you all last meeting that I went to some training on it, and I'm always a pain in the ass. So I dug this out and walked through it. I actually had to read the whole 11th edition of Robert's Rules. And I went into a coma probably a quarter of the way through. But I dug this
Good
out.
nighttime reading.
Let me tell you something. You know what? You start this, you'll go through it quickly because you go, holy cow. Not only is it clear, but
Yeah.
it said a couple things to me. We've gotten into habits that are not appropriate, and I've also screwed things up royally. All right? The chair should really not impose their personal view, but sure as hell, you need to move the meeting along. And my point of putting this down was, I'm going to do that. One of my prerogatives that are important is to limit debate. What's happened, and I struggled with this my whole term, the staff has tried to figure this out. We go way too long, we have people bailing out through most of the meeting, and we all say this, something that shouldn't take long goes on forever, and something that's important we're able to accomplish. Your resolution about e-bikes took almost 30 minutes.
Amen.
And you know what? That was my fault.
I don't know about that.
Well, let me tell you why, and I'm gonna spread the blame. The reason I'm giving this to is that what I need to do, and I want you to be aware of, when you introduce a resolution, I'll open debate. I will, the chair should really call the question, but regardless of that,
Yeah, you did that last week.
Yeah,
You
I'm
called
trying to-
each question.
yeah. Because that is one of the responsibilities of the chair. Not that, no pride of ownership there, but what I found that I've been allowing is too much extraneous conversation. In other words, you as chairs, if you have a resolution that your committee voted on, you know, I grew up in a tradition where we never often challenge the committee. But in the last, I don't know, year or so, we have been overturning what a committee does more frequently than I ever saw. And what I would advise you as chairs is that when we open the debate, encourage your committee members to speak up. They did the work. What I'm finding is that there's a couple, but there's one particular member that will have all kinds of input, and I'll say to him, did you read the resolution? Oh, it's in there. And so I need to push that a little bit more, all right?
Or
And
maybe for certain members who speak so many times, you could just say.
I have the right to
"We've heard
limit
from
that,
you."
but you should have
Perhaps
everybody.
they should, I honestly think this should be sent to every member of the board.
Well,
And an
I'm
exam
fine with
taken,
that.
it must be passed.
No joke, I mean,
No, seriously.
like, I'll design a Google quiz just to make sure people have read the
there
damn
was a
thing.
section back in there
Yeah,
which I
that's it.
found to be fascinating. Because what it does is give you in order what the motions are. In other words, you presenting a resolution is a main motion. Below that are subsidiary and, you know, a point of information is a valid motion.
Lay on the table.
It's way on the table. And you should be specific about when you want it to come off. Is it indefinite or do you have a date?
Right.
Regardless. I don't want to go through the whole thing, but Tammy, you brought up a good point about sending material out, and I'm happy to do that. I'm less sanguine about it because what I'm finding is that many people are not doing their homework. And this is my other point.
Oh, I won't argue with you on that.
I mean, we have people that will get into a long debate, and what I need to start doing now is encouraging the chair, and I'll stop it and say, if you weren't at the committee meeting, we'd love to hear your input, but we're not debating this anymore. Give us your input, and we're moving on to the next voice. But we've had raging debates with people that have never gone to that committee meeting, haven't read the resolution, but want to have a discussion about it. Do your homework. I don't know how many people here go to other board meetings. You either prepare for the meeting and speak on those topics, or you don't speak up. It's embarrassing.
But do you think that's, I don't think that's necessarily fair, because I think that there are a lot of topics that people are interested in, and
Or the
you
committee meeting.
can't
You
make
can't expect members to
everybody,
go to a
you
committee
can't.
meeting.
I can't, we're not
That's
having
what a
3 and
full
4 hour
board meeting
meetings.
is for the full board to chime in.
No,
Exactly.
listen, I don't want people not to speak, but we're not gonna have protracted
But I think
discussion.
that's your job to try to
That's-
contain
and that's
it,
what I'm telling
not to say you can't speak, period.
Oh, no,
but
no,
to
no,
say-
oh, no, I never, hey,
And this is just my opinion, that
in 3 years, I probably have only cut off 1 or 2 people. I almost go too far in letting debate go on, alright? I would still wanna hear everyone's voice, but we're not gonna have a full debate about the issue without having
I
someone.
think one of the other things that's evolved over the years is the public session has gotten longer and longer and longer. So that makes it more difficult to contain the meeting within a
But
certain
we've always had
timeframe.
problem in trying to have, I mean, we do it by having people, if there are 5 people on the same topic, you put them together.
We limit it, we have done this,
know,
it's
before.
a hard
We limit it
topic
to
if
1
people
hour. I
come out
remember
of their
nights
way
when
and show up.
Julie was chair, there were nights when it went on almost 2 hours,
Well,
Oh, yeah.
right?
But
We
I think-
limited it to 1 hour
the
now.
9/11
I
mosque.
I think on here, the thing that applies so incredibly well, and the rules of unparliamentary procedure, I think everybody should really have to read. Point of redundancy, because that's the tag on. Point of redundant information, point of pious posturing,
Pious posture.
and point of
I'd like to
grudge.
see you make that
Right.
point.
Part 5.
Well,
Well,
I'd actually like to make that, I'm okay to pull that,
Excuse me.
if
He
you
was
let
the
me.
Pope, wasn't he?
Disqualified.
Pope Pius, wasn't that?
But I mean, I think that,
12.
I think that our things end up redundant, is because there are a lot of people, like, if you're in a classroom and you agree with something, you're not allowed to actually go around and everybody says the same thing.
Right.
You give a hand signal,
Right.
you can say aye, things like that. And I think what happens for us is everybody feels,
Well, the one thing I
Attack.
wanted to communicate to you all was that I will still encourage everyone to speak on the subject. I will not entertain a long debate on it, but what I would like to encourage you to do is, what I'm finding, this is only an anecdote, is that we have a resolution, and the committee members very rarely speak up.
Yep.
It's the other people.
yeah.
I'm going to give you an example, because I want everyone to prepare. This month, we're going to have a resolution on congestion pricing. I have to sit in because he's introduced himself, so I'll introduce it. I'll have some discussion on it. Congestion pricing is a powerful thing, right? We publicized the meeting. 5 people showed up.
With a resident pass, yes.
5 people showed up. I'm going to tell everybody that if we think we're going to have a long discussion about this next week, not going to happen.
Okay, but you're gonna manicure the meeting,
And
that's
what
fine.
I'm going to do is introduce it because it's a very clear, simple thing, all right? But we're not going to go into designing possession plan pricing. We'd be there forever. We're just simply
Well,
going to say yes or no.
And if that's what you want to do, then you should be going to the Manhattan Borough President's congestion
Tomorrow night,
pricing
mhm.
thing tomorrow night.
Exactly.
You should be providing written testimony as an individual and moving forward.
And that's valid. I encourage everyone to have input.
Which reminds me, one of the things I was going to ask you here is because the hearing is tomorrow and our meeting is afterwards, is somebody from representing CB1 going to that meeting and speaking up saying we have a resolution passed by our transportation?
I haven't planned to do that.
I think it would be important to put it on record there as well as when we do a reso.
Except that it's not a passed resolution by the board.
That's completely.
But you can say it's a draft. I mean,
We can
it's
take a
just
position.
we have a position that we've taken from the Transportation Committee, and I think that if nothing else, we should submit it in writing because that's what they've asked for.
Well, I'm going to bring it to the borough board to tell them what we're doing, so
Right.
they'll have a sense of that. And we're not, I mean, I think you know what the resolution is,
I
right?
came to the meeting.
Yeah. So, it's really simple. We're not going to go, I want everyone to give their input, but we're not designers of this
No.
program right now. We simply say,
The other thing I wanted to point
Hold
out
off.
from the full
No,
meeting
hold
is
on. Don't even do it, so
We
you hung
Yeah,
on.
right, hold off.
we sometimes get into a mess because I think the conditions in the other building, that room in particular, does not lend itself well to a community board meeting.
Who's billing?
The
Mezzanine.
Oh, mezzanine.
the mezzanine level, for 3 reasons. One, they turn the heat off, it gets cold as hell. I mean, I'm sitting up there
It is.
wearing,
Yeah, no, we're
right?
not gonna
So
do that in the
that
cold.
means people, when it's really cold, people are wearing coats, they're restless. It's as bad as when it's too hot and people are restless and cranky. And so we either just, they need to leave the heat on, or we kind of need to find a new
Well,
location.
we'll be at Manhattan Youth this meeting.
Right. The other thing is, acoustically, it's interesting because I almost want to say when we were at places like Gibney, where the front of the room was where you entered, people were a hell of a lot more respectful.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
That's a really If you almost reverse,
If you reverse it.
Well, that's interesting. I didn't think.
So that's an
notice
interesting
that.
statement.
Did we
All
get the
right,
blue
so-
school, Lucia? Did we get the blue school for next month?
So I do
Okay.
think it's something that
Yeah, but we have to
we
go
should
locate it
sort of
first.
take a concept when we're looking at setting the room up, because when you need to exit and enter from the front of the room, people are far more polite. They're not talking there, they actually walk out the room and close the door. It's a very subtle way to manage the community, but it's,
That's a good observation. I didn't notice that.
I'll have to see if we can plug in the microphones from the other side of the room, but
Well, maybe we can find other venues.
Yeah, we're not going to use that exclusively. We're moving it around.
certainly not.
yeah.
But there are a couple months through the year, not every month, but a couple.
It's
It's
Yeah,
just
I
something
could
to sort
turn-
of take a, when you're looking and you walk the space to try and take a thought of.
I could turn the volume up too for the speakers. Speakers weren't turned all the way up.
You know, with that room, when people are talking in the back, it bounces.
It
The
rolls
acoustics are
off the
phenomenal.
ceiling to come around.
Okay,
So,
All right.
just a question, the
Yeah.
resolution does not contain any protections for residents? And,
Well, it adds one major
I know
protection.
this.
Don't
this
do
is
it.
What I learned the most from.
what, don't drive?
I'm loving this.
Don't have any congestion pricing.
no. Do not go forward with the congestion pricing plan for now. Give us a chance to opine on it.
What they're doing is, the government attempts to put this into a budget line item, not legislation, not proposal. It's kind of in the dead of night in the back room. And what our consensus was, we'll be here designing, do this, do that, don't do this. That empowers them to go ahead and do something. And what we're going to say is, don't you dare do a thing until you have an open, public, transparent process that we can have input into.
And what you
That's
wanted
simple.
to say is, but if you do it, include a pass to the residents.
But, and you know what?
But that gives them license to go in.
That's all you guys are willing to talk about
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
Great.
Right.
We passed a million resolutions for
And
liquor
probably
licenses that are basically
990,000 of
designed
them
in
never
that
got looked
manner.
at.
Knowing
understand.
that our preference would probably be on some of them to just say no, but we know that that agency is going to adopt.
Well, parliamentary procedure says that you either go back to the drawing board if you want to have that much amendments. This whole idea of friendly amendment does not exist there. It's up to the chair to accept a modification.
Right.
And the chair should also consult with his or her committee at that point. But we all of a sudden, but if you want to make a major, and people use this tactically, we have a couple members or one member that looks at, let's table it, which stops it, right? And, or, I want to, you should vote on an amendment, not even before the resolution is done. But I want to say, the point is that I will give you, I'll back you up, but if you say, I'm not accepting that, that's fine, unless we have a vote or a motion to amend the question. We're not going to sit here and debate all of that. So,
Okay.
that's all. Just to make it smoother. And listen,
There's even a quiz. Sorry.
you know what? You'd be surprised how quickly you'll
Night.
work through this. Yeah. So,
Just look at the last year. It
I
was
wanna give
published
you-
in 1940.
I did go to, Alice, this is for you, by the way. Can you pass that down?
Get to that.
We're going to send out copies of
That's
that.
for the administration.
Very pretty.
No,
The,
this is done by Bloomberg.
I went to the mayor's
Summer
release of that.
2002.
Some of you may have
Yeah,
This is
listened in on the
would be
phone
great,
call.
put something on it.
So they've come back with Lower Manhattan Coastal Resiliency 2.0. And I won't comment good or bad, but they've been absent for a year. They've released no information as to how they came to that conclusion. They still don't have a engagement plan. They don't have a pot to piss in. Sorry for that. And I listened to the mayor talk about this, and some of his things absolutely made sense, and some absolutely did not make any sense. Right? It's all the White House's fault that he doesn't have $10 billion to do this, but he has money to do other stuff.
Right.
So
It's the way they rolled out UPK.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
Which is killing
What
small
I'm dying
business.
to know is, I think, I told this other day, I think I spent a total of, I think there were 9 meetings, it was about 3 hours in each meeting, so I spent close to 30 hours in extra work outside of the community board to go to like resiliency meetings where you're putting stickers on different diagrams, oh, this is the type of resiliency measure I want, so it's recreation as opposed to blah, blah, blah. How did all of that work end up, if at all, inside there? Because I gotta tell you, I sure as hell am never doing any of these things ever again.
Did you ever
unless-
see EDC there? I don't remember seeing them.
Well, I think EDC they had their public affairs person or whatnot come to some of those, but
Was that
ultimately,
Morgan?
yeah, it was actually even before Morgan got hired. Actually, so they always have somebody there, and obviously not like a James Patcher type. But at the end of the day, I just am curious. Did they just say, okay, you know what, all this kind of useless exercise because we found all these new conditions that don't apply,
Well,
and here's our plan?
They did something similar in Ward 3 where they
Yeah.
totally redid redesigned
They
their park.
redesigned that, so to some extent, I actually just want the city to acknowledge whether or not the work we did was
And
useful or
Diana
not
and I
useful.
talked about this at the press conference. One of the big things he brought up, well, now we realize that we can't drive piles because of the battery tunnel and the A&C tunnel. They've been there for 100 years. How do you just find this out?
Yep.
So some things are not driving.
Yeah.
He had James Patchett, who's the EDC
Yep.
CEO, smart guy by the way, and he answered some questions, hard questions very well. I take him at his word. They really are saying, different than Bloomberg Seaport City, this is not a development plan. And the reason they say that is that they may, if it shows up, they may only go 50 feet out because the permitting would be a disaster to go much further. But, and if they did that, they may not have to do, they wouldn't do any development. But he was also very clear, if we have to go that, to the pier head out, then development will clearly, because he said, well, I don't have money, Washington's doing the whole thing. I don't
Yeah.
believe some of that. And you know what, the other thing, that document, I want everyone to be clear. I've read through it, Diana, I think we have the same thing. That's a plan to have a plan to have a plan.
Right, it was this
There's
30,
nothing
20, 30
actionable.
years down the road.
Oh my God. And by the way, in 2 years, when he's out, who knows what happens?
Exactly, exactly.
And in 2 years, when he's out, Battery Park City Authority will have final plans and are already started their work.
Right.
By the way, I've always had the opinion that I'm okay with pieces of this being done. That Battery Park City Authority stood up and said, I'll do this piece. Hey, someone's making progress, good for them. But now, at that press conference, they made this seem like this was a coordinated plan. You know, our partner, BPCA, our partner at the Battery Conservancy, our partner at, come on.
Because
No, this is
Right.
7 years, and now you're partnering with people.
I'll tell you why. Because they let Battery Park City Authority lead from State Street to Chambers. So Battery Park City Authority is going well outside their own individual envelope, beyond their responsibilities of Pier A, to link to the high point on State Street. So they are the ones who have already commissioned the surveys to go around the underpass, the tunnel, the rest of it, and they're the ones who are actually, so, I mean, I'm so glad that they've said
Right,
they're
and
partnered.
if they didn't, the water would come in over the top where
Wait.
they didn't cover.
Right, and so we all
And good
recognize
for
it.
them for doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
This
the
is
point
the
is
city's-
that their plan
And that-
now is a plan to have a plan. They may take 2 years to even do a study or come up with what is feasible or not.
Then he's out. Maybe he's running
Exactly.
for president.
So I sent a note out to folks today. Diana had some wonderful ideas about what to do, at least these days, and I think those make sense. Now, something could change tomorrow, and we'll adapt to that. But right now, we'll take that position of show us how you came up with this.
Yeah.
Which leads me to my other thing I want to update you. On March 25, which is next Tuesday, we will probably receive the certification for ULURP for the Manhattan Detention Complex.
Yay.
We're gonna have fun with this one too. Now, I don't believe, I sat Monday night with the chair of CB3, and I told her, we are responsible for this, but you need to understand that my sense is that our community board this is not a high priority. So, even though we wanna hear your input, don't expect that you're gonna hear us, have some of these great ideas. I don't know what will come out. I've attended 4 of the NAC, Neighborhood Advisory Council meetings. I was at one Monday night. I usually am pretty quiet at some of these, but Monday night I had to be tied down for a while because I told them this is manipulative. And I told everybody in the room, they came up with lighting principles. I love that. And I said, this may be good ideas, but I don't want anyone here to expect that this is an approval of this because you guys have accepted this. I mean, some of it was just outlandish. And it's a foregone conclusion that this is gonna happen. Oh, by the way, he has the 10 or $11 billion to do that.
But
And there are people, and you know what, there are problems on Rikers Island, but as the age-old question goes, if this was the, is this the solution to the problem? Don't know. It's not clear. So Pastor, we'll talk more about that. We'll have a couple of people come in and talk at some of our meetings because, hey, there are problems there that need to be fixed, but tearing up a neighborhood for 10 years? And by the way,
you're lucky.
it's not just, even though it's at the northern end of ours, to do the demo on those two existing towers and then put up a 1.5 million square foot building, which is highly secure. Can you imagine the traffic in our neighborhoods?
They'll be digging out a parking garage too.
Yeah, 120.
Because they're getting a collective bargaining agreements.
You're gonna displace judges' parking, watch out.
What?
You're gonna displace
I
the
feel
parking
like-
of a lot of judges.
Wrong community board member I was looking at right there, sorry.
Oh, no.
That's right. You're
Not to mention DOT.
Well, we're displacing it only for a short time because they're building them a garage that we're going to have to
This
suffer
project.
through for 10 years.
Hey,
yeah.
we're within our rights to say we don't think this is a good idea. No,
We
no,
might.
Thank you.
We might very well.
I
Again,
mean,
I'm
I
not.
saw there were a lot of people around the table who weren't saying that much, but seemed to not be too enthused.
Could leave Rikers the way it is, or put the money in
People
the
had
right pot.
ideas about
Right.
fixing
Bad
up
apples
Rikers.
now.
It's not
We made a lot of
Atlantis, it's
comments
not
about that,
disappearing.
and other
But-
people.
Although the
There
next
was,
thing-
there was a
I
woman
always
behind
say
me.
I
who
have
was-
I don't have answers to most of the questions I hear, but I have a lot of questions. And if this is the answer, what are we fixing? And I had a long conversation with an inmate at Rikers Island last week, and he described some of the problems that people may. I mean, there are 8,000 people up there. There are 100, maybe a little under 120 that are sentenced there.
Yep.
The rest of them are detainees because they couldn't make bail, and we're having them in a holding pen.
But
They
see,
don't work. They don't get any
So,
remedial
that's
stuff.
that problem is not going to be solved by a bigger facility closer to the courthouse.
Yeah, it just passes it along.
It just, it
That's a
moves,
debate. It's
it
a valid
moves
comment.
with it.
And that's what I bring to point up is that this person is saying if it's a jail, there's about a little more than 100 people that are serving a sentence there. The other 75, 7,900 people are teenagers that we now create an environment where all they're going to learn is to be violent
Who
again.
was smoking pot outside.
Or they jump the turnstile.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? So there are problems that need to be fixed, but you always ask the question, if this is the answer, are we solving a problem here? So I just want to give you a heads up that April and May will have 2 land use meetings where it'll be on the agenda. We'll have to figure out once we get the package what that looks like. Because I remember years ago when the DEIS came out for the World Trade Center, it was so large we pieced it around.
I
And
remember
everybody
that. I
volunteered to
remember
take
that.
some of that. So I don't know what this will look like, if we can handle it internally or not, but how are you? Sorry,
But I'm okay.
it's spring,
It's spring.
Yeah.
Yes.
so.
I like this. We're
So,
talking about.
MDC is a big one. We think we'll be able to finish it for the May full board meeting. And we've timed it so that, the way Diana worked out the dates, we will be able to get CB3's resolution as input to ours. No,
That's good.
there's no, and no expectation that we have to, it's not gospel. But we'll at least give them the courtesy of sending it to us, and we'll see
Did you
what
get the sense that they were accepting the inevitable here?
What's weird about this
I'm
is
missing
that
April.
even though we're the community board of records for Europe, CB3 is not. And when I go to all these meetings, it's all Chinatown residents or
Sure.
business, and they honestly, they want their own community board. they don't feel connected with CB1 or CB3.
You're right.
So that's
Right.
why I think the mayor's office set up this NAC, because they want us to satisfy these people, because they're gonna be the most vocal, and they're gonna be the ones really impacted, and they're not working through any community board.
By the prison?
They're working with Margaret Strong on that?
I mean, it's kind
Why
of,
aren't they working?
Margaret, let me tell you something, Margaret, I think is in
They
an
are,
awkward
but-
position.
they're a split voice into two sections.
They don't
so
like her.
They don't
Yeah,
have the.
yeah.
So-
Yeah. Well, because they don't trust
They
it.
don't trust them.
Well, what are the two voices? How are they split?
They're split geographically between our community board and the others, so they don't have they don't feel, I don't think, that they have the combined strength to have that relevant discussion of it's this entire zone. You understand what I mean?
No, because both boards should be fighting on behalf of them.
Yeah.
And we should have a united front.
Yes.
So why wouldn't they
But
feel
they're,
that they are?
they're concerned that the Euler process, which is defined as like the way that we sort this out, only runs through the community board that has the fewest percentage of Chinatown. So the
Right.
bulk of Chinatown is essentially officially left out of Euler
Right.
completely.
Now, the chair is Alicia Coleman. I don't know if you've ever met her. So we had dinner Monday night. And, I said, look, we're going to wait for you to do your thing. We'll input, whatever it is. And I made it very clear, all these meetings, we want to hear these people.
Right.
Because I think as a Monday night when I went to the last one, it was very, to me, very manipulative. And I criticized the mayor's office, but I also criticized a lot of the members of this thing. And I said, I may be a pain in the ass, but you're going all about this all wrong. You know what? They're negotiating before a decision is made. Simply say no. The last guy to talk is the guy that loses here. And you're negotiating
What we did here.
which effectively or tactically gives your opponent.
Well, question, do you have any sense that Chinatown is unified in a position? Because my experience working with Chinatown, and I had some in some of my previous jobs, they're a very,
They're
there's
very-
a lot of different voices in Chinatown that
Absolutely.
represent a lot of different interests, and there's a lot of groups, and there's a lot of
There's a lot of
ethnic
Mr. Lee
background
and
groups.
DG and.
Exactly.
But is there
There's
So
anybody
my
that wants
point
to
is
present?
that I don't know if, even anyone is speaking for Chinatown and how
I've
we
not-
would know.
I've not
So there's a-
heard one positive voice coming out of Chinatown in any meeting I've
I think this
been
is one
to.
issue that I was thinking.
how
This
They
is
say
the one
so.
issue
Huh?
because you've
How
got
would they benefit by this?
Well, let me tell you why. Let me answer this. You're right, they're splintered, and part of it is because human nature. There are people at these meetings, and they'll be pretty open. And I understand them, I'm not criticizing them. A lot of the nonprofits, if the mayor pays us off, we're going to go along with this. It's that simple. And then there are people that say, bullshit, I have to live here? You're going to tear up this neighborhood?
Right.
Canal Street is a disaster already. Imagine a 10-year construction project.
Right.
So there's that
Or Wall
factor.
Street.
Then there's some people that are ultra conservative. Leave them all out there. We don't have to do a damn thing. Then there are people that say, we have to do
It's
this.
like the homeless.
I mean, it's all over the map.
But the majority of people are still saying that this doesn't benefit them.
That's right. It doesn't
Right.
benefit them.
So
But
They're-
if
they-
you make it worth my while, and that's what the mayor has.
So
played
how
on, I
could, what
believe.
can he do to give, what can he give
But
them? What's been
He has
offered
not,
that's worth
there
their
has
while?
been no,
There's
Community
nothing you're
space.
gonna hear about.
That's
No, no,
what
no,
it's
no.
offered.
But they're taking-
But that's all
but
I've
it's
heard.
it's not even, they're removing retail to do it. So they're removing amenities that serve the greater community for the storefront ground retail for, there's nothing.
They
What,
could-
am I lost that we're in a new location now?
No, they
No,
haven't,
Are we still on the corner of Worth and?
No, now they're
Oh, no,
the
no,
plan
no,
is to
no.
Where are
redevelop.
we now?
One
We
Street
defeated
development.
Move back to
They're on
Barron
Cedar
Street.
Street, that's what they're on.
Yeah, they're over by Chinatown now.
White.
That-
Well,
They're in Chinatown now.
What streets?
We're Worth
White.
Street's off
White
the,
Street.
They're White Street.
Street.
Courthouse.
Lafayette,
It's
Center.
where the facility currently exists. They ripped it down and rebuilt
it's
it.
center.
The current
Oh,
two.
fantastic, you mean where we haven't been able to get through since
Correct.
9/11,
Yeah.
where they
Yeah.
killed a lot of retail already. What do you mean they're gonna kill? They're gonna
A
kill the
little
rest of the
A
retail.
little further up the road from there, but yes.
Yeah.
So,
So
Yeah, go ahead,
things
for
that
the
I
future.
suspect
And
will
what
be.
about the school? The high school, Bertram.
It's north of there, so
It's
it's,
not
you follow
very
Center
close to
Street,
Berkeley.
it's at White and Center.
So it's only a couple of blocks away.
It's a
Well,
little farther.
it's
White ends at Baxter Street,
Okay, I'll look
Alright.
at a map.
and then Bertram is on the other side of Bowery.
Not
That's
Bowery,
up where-
Okay, so now that I'm oriented again, it's still not worth their while.
Well, it's not worth anybody's while who resides in the neighborhood.
Right.
That is one of the major concerns and issues. Besides the fact of its oversized scale and scope and
And we still go back to traffic. How they're gonna transport prisoners. I mean, I've tried to take a Uber or Via,
Here's the big joke.
yeah.
They're gonna do this,
They wanna
all
stay
the 800 prison detainees that are there now
Right.
are gonna have to go to Blythe's Island for the next 10 years.
And they're gonna have to go to downtown hospital when they need emergency care,
Right,
like we've had
No, they're
before.
gonna take them back out to Blythe's Island.
why they die in the
No,
back of the car?
they'll die in the back of the car. There's
Right.
no way that's gonna happen.
Well, they'll take them to Queens. In fact, I got a copy of a
Is that right?
resolution
Really?
from
Really?
CB9 in Queens. I didn't realize, ours is 1.5 million square feet, theirs is almost 2 million. And the difference is, they're putting it in a acute care facility in that facility. So if you're sick, you're gonna get trucked from Lower Manhattan out to Queens. And they're gonna have another 200 beds out there.
Good
It's-
luck on the bridge.
It is very complicated.
But to answer your earlier
Go by
question,
boat.
Which one?
though,
They
what
take them by,
what
Why
do
are
they
you
do
excited, Patrick?
to make
By-
people want this
by boat.
project? Likely, we'll see promises of affordable housing development within the Chinatown community, not unlike what they built with Chongpak. So
Where?
supportive housing for seniors. I mean,
How
the
many
city
units?
owns sites all around. I'm certain that there's buildings that are owned in Chinatown. Park upgrades is something that came up with the NAC that you'd likely to see, and then but other than
I mean,
that,
those things are needed, so. I don't know.
Look, I don't want, they're our neighbors and we should advocate for them, but I also want us all to be aware that when this thing gets moving, it's gonna be every man for himself.
Yeah.
Everyone's gonna grab, I want this, I want that. We have to protect our own interests. It's that simple.
Yeah.
So in our Europe, even though the neighborhood advisory council, mostly Chinatown people, are gonna have a lot of asks, we have to insert what will happen here. And we have to make a stand as to whether or not this does
So what
something.
kind of asks do we want besides affordable housing?
I don't know, we're gonna have two more things, I mean,
Gotta be
build
a
it
lot.
somewhere else.
our traffic is gonna be, it's still a disaster.
Traffic is ridiculous.
We have problems on the east side with the new market building, there's no money there for doing something. I mean, there's probably a couple of things that we can talk about. Even affordable housing here.
Yes, as I said, affordable
It would be
housing, yeah,
really
yeah.
nice to have some of that in Lower Manhattan again.
Oh, we have
Yeah.
some.
Well, let me
That's
tell you,
really,
that would be, I think, the big fight, because Chinatown really sees that as a major thing they want. And in some cases, they deserve it,
Rightly so, yeah.
but we're gonna vie for the same pie
A
here.
lot of people got moved out of that community.
Absolutely. And they're, to a certain extent, rightfully, they've been cut off because of Park Wilson for 17 years now.
Exactly.
So they have real legitimate
Right.
claims.
And no one's ever, I mean, everyone's thought about it, but no one's ever talked about legitimately reestablishing the link, the bus route. No.
well, the
So-
bus goes, the bus, they opened Park Road for the bus.
Oh, so the bus is
Yeah,
going?
and pedestrian, you can actually walk
You
through.
can walk,
But
bicycle, and bus.
It is not the same way we used to just drive right through.
Right. So in
You
terms
know.
of businesses and deliveries and that, those kinds of
Exactly.
things, they've still been impacted.
We made a heavy push to reopen that.
Yeah, I
There were
remember.
meetings in our old office with
Yeah.
the police commissioner, and he was the guy who
And
just
he was
They keep
adamantly
yelling
just
9/11,
said no way,
9/11,
and we were not
police.
able to overcome that.
Yeah, don't
It
want
was
to.
that simple.
Set
Everyone,
them,
we
yeah.
made it very clear
Yeah.
we wanted to reopen.
We
And
have
there
a-
really wasn't a legitimate
honestly,
reason
you have
to
a
keep
better
it
chance of
closed.
trying to get a street open at the World
And
Trade
Gold
Center at
Street
this point.
straight through, Paul.
So,
Yeah.
so that's our story with MDC. Two land use meetings, April, May, for the May full board meeting, we'll draft our, resolution on the ULURP. And it's advisory, right?
Yeah, as everything is.
Yeah. Margaret's in a tougher position than we are, because Margaret's in.
What?
Well, it really is clear that many in the Chinatown community don't trust her.
They haven't. She's been in trouble.
Right.
Not just
And
China-
this is
Chinatown.
inflaming things.
Yeah.
She's had a lot of tough
Yeah, she's
issues.
got a lot of tough
Oh, yeah.
issues.
I feel bad for
I
her.
mean,
The village. I mean, she's
right,
got
she
a lot
has
of
that
tough
garden,
issues.
she
Yeah.
has those towers,
Yeah.
so I'm not taking her side necessarily,
No,
but
she's been
that's-
slammed a lot since
Yeah.
she took office.
Mm.
But you know how
there's
perception
a lot of
is
people
set,
who
so.
are angry at her.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
But unfortunately, the best
Well, the
solutions are the ones
17
where
ULURP
everybody's
is
upset.
still, right?
She didn't do that well, that one, with that one
Yeah,
either.
that was another.
So did you already discuss
Swing and a
this?
miss.
Before you came in, what I was saying is that I want you some training on it. This, I read the book, but this is an excellent overview of parliamentary procedure. And when I read it, it really showed me that I'm doing a lot of things wrong. And I'm going to try and be, as always, I always let people talk, but I often now let the conversation go on way too long. And so I'm just going to be stricter. You're pretty good, but I notice that in some cases, a committee comes up with a vote, but they don't defend it. And we have all this side conversation about it. I mean, we've been on long enough where it was unusual to overturn a committee vote.
But this is where it goes back to a conversation we all had a while ago. There are certain issues, not every single little thing. But there are certain big issues where just being in a committee meeting doesn't seem to be enough to me. It needs to be a real point that we discuss in the full board meeting. And I know the problem is nobody wants to stay any later than they have to. But there are issues that come up. There are a lot of issues that come out of your committee. There are issues that come up. Not so much your committee or my committee. I once in a while I'll have something. But there are issues that come up. I'm sure it's going to be out of your committee now. Battery Park City, I don't know.
I respect that, and I think at a full board meeting, everyone should bring up any idea, any perspective they have.
No, but we don't have the discussion about the problem.
Well, what happens is that we wind up going down a path where we almost rewrite the whole resolution. And I'm okay with adjusting it.
But is it because, again, it's such a big issue and we haven't had the discussion about it?
I
Then
know,
people
but
need to
go
go.
to the committee meeting.
But that's what's always been said, and people can't go to 10 committee meetings a
No,
month.
totally, or at least send thoughts in advance. I think for
I
my
think
own.
sending thoughts in advance actually might be a really good policy to start to tell people.
Yeah, but it might not be something you have thoughts about unless you've had the discussion, you've been in on the discussion.
Well, maybe we as chairs should try to get our resolutions to the office a little sooner so that the resolution can go out
That
to the
would help.
members and give people a little bit more time. And I know that our staff and we're just as guilty.
But you're
about
saying,
it.
you're still saying after the fact, so the resolution
Right.
goes out
And-
earlier.
and-
But people haven't been in on the discussion.
No,
There are
no,
things-
all right, I get that,
Right.
but a lot of times people are first reading the resolution
Oh,
when they
granted,
get to the
I
meeting.
agree with you on that. But what I'm saying is that I'm sorry.
No, go for it, Patrick.
There are a lot of times there are issues that are huge issues that affect all of us. We can't get to the meeting. And we would like to have the knowledge that the committee got while it was in discussion. And we're not getting that because we're only looking at the resolution. We're hearing a little bit about what the committee discussed, but we're really not, either you had a presenter come, or you actually debated the issue, and we
Okay.
were not there. We don't really
So
have
what,
the
how would you,
insights.
so what do we do with that?
I'm just saying that, I just think, and it's up to the chair, but I think there are certain big issues that we need to flag, and I mean, I kind of suggested this before, and I know it's difficult because everybody goes to 10 meetings a month. To kind of flag like a really huge issue that affects the entire community and maybe have what's called another full board meeting where we actually discuss that issue.
It's not a
Like a
crazy
town hall.
idea. My problem, I think, I might offer this, is that we should encourage members to contact the committee chair. Hey, I want to know what went on, or get the recording, or I need to talk to somebody. What was the discussion like? Because you don't necessarily get a sense of it from the resolution.
It's one big issue like that was on Water Street, Thank the what? Yes, exactly. And that was a huge issue. And remember what happened over at the school? That's when it came up and we were all like, what? What? And then there were things that you brought out, well, they're getting it for free.
I have to interrupt there. This is a personal view. The Water Street resolution, I wasn't there, was ill-handled and rushed through. Now, I'm not saying you agree or not agree, but both the chair at that time and the Downtown Alliance said we have a done deal.
Pushed it through. And so we didn't get a flavor of
I will tell you, I will never do that. I haven't
Yeah.
done that in the 2.5 years here. If it's that big, then I would say as an alternative, call me up and I'll tell all the members Wednesday night, tell me this is so important,
Right.
I want it held over.
Right.
Alright? Now, I didn't do that, but I made an announcement to everybody about congestion pricing. And I know everyone's passionate about it. We have to do it because the April 1 budget is coming up. And we need to get that
Okay,
out.
am I missing something? What are we not doing for the condition?
We're not
No,
doing.
you'll actually be so happy with this resolution.
We're not going.
Who wrote the resolution?
I did.
And why aren't we having a big discussion about it?
Because 5 people showed up.
I'm sorry, when was this meeting?
At transportation.
Transportation meeting, publicized. Now, I'm not putting you on the spot.
No,
But,
I just.
and I need to point out to people, Lucy every week sends out the agendas.
Yeah, no, Lucy's fabulous, we all know. All
No,
of the
and I know how busy everyone is,
Yeah.
but
We
we
just
work
said-
with them.
I
We
really
just
didn't
said
see
don't
that.
do it.
But you know what?
I
It's a resolution that makes the most amount of sense, because why are you debating the details if you don't agree with the overall concept of where it's going? So that actually is
And
something.
that's what,
This is like Amazon, you're
And-
doing it without getting
And
input from
I
us.
think that it's really important that we not at the full board meeting get sucked into that.
about details, exactly, because I don't
Could help.
give a shit about the details. I
Oh,
totally
I do.
disagree. And I
I
think
do.
I've said to some of you already, so my parents live in Queens, and they're 90, and I'm out there a lot, and then I gotta get back into the city.
Yeah.
And they're already starting to charge the extra congestion pricing
Yeah, on the
tagged
Uber,
on to Ubers,
and
Vias,
Lyft.
Lyfts. But I
They're
said to
flipping
them-
this stuff in every day that we don't know about.
All right.
So, again, we don't want to debate it because we simply say, stop it,
Yes,
stop. That's all. Come to the table and let's all have an intelligent discussion. Because again, you'll hear me say this more and more. If
You're
this
one of
is
the
the
most
solution, what problem are we fixing? Or are you just raising money for yourself?
Right.
Because that's what's happening here. It's going into a budget.
It's
They're
a
not
tax.
asking us.
Right.
It's a tax. It
But
really
of course,
becomes
someone
a tax.
can say we should have resident
One of the-
pay, all right? But then Anthony's gonna turn around and say, we don't want to encourage going forward with this at this point, period. So if we say, if you did it, put in
and
a pass
right,
for the
then it means that
residents,
we agree with
then it
that.
opens the door.
Right, exactly.
There was, I'll tell you a funny story. There's a woman at the,
You could say anything under future discussion should include this, and then say that we think it should be tabled.
there's a woman at the
You could do
Manhattan
both.
Detention Center community meetings. She turned to me one day and said, you know what? This is why someone's coming up to me and saying, I'm going to shoot you, but you have a choice what body part I shoot. And then I'll pay for your hospital bill. I don't want you to shoot me. I don't want you to, shoot my finger as opposed to my head.
Exactly.
So, no negotiation.
Just explain to me
There's a
why.
whole point here. One of the things that Lucien brought to us, and we're slowly getting there, we talked about, at least recording committee meetings for everybody. We'll get into live streaming at some point, where you can watch the conversation.
Which would be fabulous,
And-
because that is a meeting I would have, since I couldn't be there in person, then that means at 2 o'clock in the morning I could be watching.
That would be great.
Exactly.
Right, no, we do
That
have
would
the
be like
recordings.
having minutes,
Everything-
living minutes for every meeting you wanted
We-
to tap into.
We do have the recordings, but the next phase of all this is actually something that Lucy came up with. We can use Google's Hangouts Meet platform to run an interactive live stream where, if the chair designates someone just to watch the chat log, if somebody has a question or a comment, they could introduce that as they listen or watch the meeting. So it opens a possibility for members or the public to remotely be active participants in a meeting, they won't count for quorum,
Right.
And they can't vote.
and they can't
But you
vote.
get the information and
But,
you
but
can
there's a
ask the
way, there's a way
But it is
to
a public
implement that.
meeting, right.
question. Right.
Yeah. So
That
there,
sounds fair.
there's,
Could be a
there's,
homemaking
there's
dinner.
that, which is part of a package that the office is moving towards,
Which would be a rarity,
getting,
right?
but
Go pick up.
I know everybody probably wants to go, but I just have one more question. So why is congestion pricing only below, what is it, 61st Street? Why? Why is not above 61st Street congested also?
I think that
Reggie, do you
they
have an answer on
simply-
that? He
I'm
looked
keeping
like
my
he
mouth
was
shut.
eating.
I'm
Oh,
recusing
no,
myself
open
from
your
the,
thing.
I'm recusing myself from this matter.
No, just give us
But-
information.
I'm going to,
Yeah, but
I'm just gonna recuse
They're
myself.
claiming that that's the central
We cannot
business
judge.
district that they wanna cover. They're not
You
doing
are allowed
this
to
in
participate
Brooklyn
in
or
pilot.
Queens,
Right.
This
because
I'm going to choose not to.
the Midtown Central
I think I
Business
see it's
District
tainted.
and our Central Business District is where the money is.
All right.
This is where the traffic is.
So we're all agreed, don't do it.
Right.
All right? We're all agreed.
No, but
And
I just
bottom
wanna know
line
who
is-
decided that that was the demarcation, that
I
was
with the
the
cigars in the back room.
3 men in the room,
yeah,
now the one woman. All right.
The guy who named the bridge after
But
his
on-
father.
but on the other hand, I definitely think
Wasn't complete.
if you have written testimony, whether you can be at the thing or not, each individual should, the more written testimony the Manhattan Borough President has, the better off it is. And I think as an individual on this board, if you feel strongly about anything, you should submit written testimony to her.
For tomorrow night.
submit it,
Tomorrow night.
You can
submit
do
it
an
to
email.
me,
You can
submit it
email
to
it.
Diana, and we will give it to her transportation policy analyst so that
Well, I
it's.
said, I still think that, there are many people who can't make it tomorrow night, and so I am
Submit written.
requesting though that Gail have someone come and explain to us what happened at the meeting.
I think Gail's position is they're standing pretty strong on just saying no
Yeah,
to the
but
vote.
we just wanna know what happened at the meeting,
Committee report.
and, what facts came up that we might
Well,
not.
they should have a report, I'm sure that they'll have some report at the, after they were able to synthesize everything. And we can ask that somebody come and present on that.
Present it to us. And this is something that the entire board might be interested in hearing, not just one
But by then,
We did.
but because the state budget has to
We
be
can do
in
that
by the 1st of April,
at the board meeting.
by then,
So when's that meeting happening, so,
It's in Cooper Union somewhere.
yeah,
Yeah,
Right,
it's up
it's
at
Cooper
Cooper
Union.
yeah, it's not even in our.
Also, tomorrow night, I just want to point out that it's the city charter commission. I was sorry the community board didn't really get out front on that, but for those still interested, like me.
By the way, one,
I heard, Lucian told me I was
What
amazed.
it's unbelievable.
But anyway, tomorrow night is a very important meeting. It's one of the commission meetings that's dealing with land use, and it's looking at comprehensive planning, something I know I've spoken
didn't
to a
even
couple of
know
people
that.
here. Well, that's the thing, but it will be a very, very interesting meeting, and in fact, it is, and I apologize in advance, I won't probably make the Battery Park City Authority when you'll go to that, because I really think that, and I will report in, but the concept of comprehensive planning, which something I know we've talked about in land use and waterfront last night, it'll be fleshed out a bit, and it may very well become part of the charter, and so, anyway, they're fascinating topics for those interested in reconsidering regulation in the city. It's pretty critical stuff. It's actually a place we really could
Yeah.
make the biggest difference, I would argue, so.
Here's another question.
I'm
and
glad
you
you're
come back
going.
and if you, well, yeah, and you should participate, write in, testify where you can. We still have some time, right, Reggie? You could
plenty of
give us,
time.
right, till November, right?
Oh, no, it's
No.
gonna be on the ballot, in
I
the
think
fall.
by July, this is
July,
July
okay,
8th.
so, anyway, I'll be happy to report in, but I would love it if some.
By the way, I want to
Anyway.
bring this up to you. I don't know if you remember, I sent out all the
Yes,
dates
yes,
for
I
it.
do, I do.
I've had it in the chair report for probably 3 or 4
I followed
months.
up. Yeah, I heard, nobody.
We were going to do a task force.
I
know.
thought you had
I
one.
sent it.
Well,
We sent it.
We asked people to send in, and some
Yeah, we
people
did.
sent
A couple
in.
people sent in
But
some
as a
comments.
board, we've had no drive to say we need to be involved in this.
but it would,
Really?
it would be good to make good on.
And
Really?
by the way, I bring this up, let me just,
Send it
let me
into
just
the
put
staff.
the
Yeah.
cross the T on this. We are all busy, and I understand if it's not a priority or there are others in your lives, that's fine. I'm not judging people.
No, I know, but.
But if you want to be involved, be involved. Don't not be involved and then complain that Because I get that from all these people. And then our meetings turn out to be, they almost have, and this is almost another comment, many of our topics are not necessarily very content specific, more process. And I'm like, you could have read that before, you could have gone to me, you could have called me up, you could have called him up and say, this is inappropriate, I want it stopped, or I need to learn more. And we don't have the engagement that we should have. Again, I know that everyone's busy. I don't
I
have
just
a
want,
problem.
no, what can we do to try to do something about that?
Restraint. And what I mean by that is,
Meet some members.
so I'm going to speak from a point of personal frustration before I became a committee chair and now as a committee chair. So I try to do the best I can in terms of trying to understand what's coming up for any committee, and if there's something I really care about, I'll show up to a committee meeting. If there's something where I didn't do my own due diligence on it and we get to the full board, I could probably spend 10 minutes of like but critiquing the chair or about a resolution. But if I haven't done my own due diligence, basic stuff, not like, it's a complicated matter, I need someone to explain it, but if I haven't done my homework on an issue, I just show personal restraint and I just don't say anything and realize, you know what, I missed my own boat on this, so I need to suck it up a little bit. When it comes to now I'll talk a little bit about my own personal frustration being transportation chair since November. So I've now chaired 4 months of meetings, and even on the most innocuous thing that I think is not a big deal, people are coming out of the freaking woodwork, and I'm like, guys, in terms of, and I have members who email me in advance of a transportation meeting to say, these are the issues I care about, we discuss it, we make sure it's included, I'll follow up with that committee member after to say, here's where the conversation went. And then I have members at every single monthly meeting who has not said a freaking word about anything, out of nowhere saying, I have all these sudden issues. And I'm okay with that, it's okay, it's a democracy. But if you're not willing to say, I'd like for the committee to explain this, or review this, or reach up in advance if you can't make it to a meeting, then you gotta show restraint. Like, I don't know, and I struggle with this because I like to be accommodating. I think Bruce even made a comment like, you're being way too accommodating to everybody, Reggie, at the last meeting, and I am trying to do my best on that. But on the same token, I'm at that point now where I'm gonna turn into exactly what you said, Anthony, which is, no, we're moving on, and I'll take my own advice.
I have more frustration with people who come to a committee meeting and don't open their mouth. The committee meeting is where you're supposed to participate. Right. This is what we're doing. The full board is not the place for the.
It's not.
I mean, I understand if the committee member is countering a point made by somebody who wasn't at the meeting. I get that, but new information that comes up, I think you ought to have the courtesy to email the chair and say, listen, after the committee meeting, I thought this, and this. I realized I didn't say it at the meeting. That's actually respectful to your chair.
Yeah. And this is I'm glad you said it that way. It was very polite. But the problem that we're having, I struggle with this since I've been chair, about how to get engagement, how to have people sit there and really. A board meeting should be to review the material that the committee has worked on. You may have participated. It is not here for, I want to have a whole discussion and emotional display on this thing. You know what? Thank you, stay at home. We don't need to spend all this time on that.
But that's why I'm saying big issues. There've been 1 or 2.
Well, I'll be more, and I'm going to give people heads up many times. A big issue's coming up. It's on the agenda. If you want to come and you are passionate, please be there. But a board meeting, a full board meeting is not, we're spending way too much time.
And some of the issues that get rehashed are so tiny.
You as a chair, you know, if you present a resolution and you get someone that has never participated and wants to discuss it.
Or some people who, no matter what, discuss every little thing, no matter what it is.
You're usually an hour.
I just want to ask, just to finish on that, because it does seem like it would fall on the executive committee, if it's possible that, I'd spoken to Lucian about that and you last year, we talked a little bit about, what might go into a resolution of what we do support. So I kind of wanted to know if we could flesh that out at some future executive committee meeting as to whatever few pieces came into the board, including the one we talked about, transparency, in terms of agency review of an engagement with the public, if we could do that here at some future point?
Sure.
And, okay, because I assume that's
Well,
the committee it
let's
would
see
go
when I
with.
talk about how we'll force that out and be
And
able
I
to
assume
do
it
it.
would be in this committee, I don't know, but
Yeah,
it's.
so, and the ballot questions, the sample ballot questions should be ready May or June-ish. So it should give us time to actually opine on, unlike the last
Yeah.
charter commission.
Terrific.
Right, because we can't opine once it goes onto the ballot, because
Once it
then
goes
we're,
onto the
then we're
ballot,
electioneering at that point.
Right, right, so they'll have sample ballots before it officially becomes voted on, they'll
Okay.
actually put out
But
sample questions.
Would we want to be
But-
promoting something that we would support to put in the ballot?
Oh, yeah, we should
Yes,
do it, we should do
yeah,
it both
that's what
sides,
I'm
we should
talking
totally do it
about.
now,
Yeah,
and
now,
we should do it
yeah,
later.
okay.
But that should be
Okay.
now, right?
Totally.
That
Yeah,
should be
so I just
April,
wanted to
May,
bring
June.
that up.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's an important thing.
I-
It
I-
essentially is how the
Okay.
city government works. And at every meeting, we have issues with how it works, so now's the time to say something.
So Alice can report back next
In the morning?
meeting.
Oh,
She's
that'd
going
be
to
fine,
the charter
okay.
review thing, she can report back to next week's
Yeah.
meeting.
Thank you and
I was
apologies.
gonna put that on the agenda.
Good, do that. So,
Okay.
unless you, I'm happy to hear whatever you guys have. Diana and Shiori, our urban fellow, have done a nice job with budgeting process, and they'll present that in the future. You'll see on here we talk about 2019 goals. Those are expressing mine. I don't want to boil the ocean. If every committee has one or two goals for the year that we can really drive hard, get budget behind it, that'd be great.
Yeah,
That's
so
all.
it was, so moving forward, we want the committees to take that last year's exercise of looking at 2018 and looking at 2019, use that as a guiding principle with your 2019 goals. Think about narrowing it down to a few items and letting that be the lodestone for each committee so that certain things will happen over the course of the year. Issues will pop up that have to be addressed, but the overarching narrative of the work of that committee should be defined by one of those goals. And we can also use that and plug that into the upcoming budget process as we go through. Again, we're starting to gear up again for the 2021, fiscal year 2021 budget. So that's going to be a good way for us to go into this next cycle. And then in 2020, we can look back to see of those few 2019 goals, how well we adhered to that and what progress we made moving into the next year, and if those goals need to shift for 2020. Does that make sense? So the 2018 was a good kind of look back to see what was done, but 2019 we can really narrow that down and make that a core function of the long-term view of that committee.
One last thing, our fellow member Manny Romero has resigned.
Oh.
You know, he's going for a PhD or an EZD, and now the workload, he says, has gotten way too much. And he's working full-time, so he offered his resignation, couldn't talk him out of it, I tried. So, Patrick and I are working through alternatives to that, so what's to know, but we're down 4 members right now.
I thought we were just doing 2. I mean, well, no.
Tom.
Erica.
Elizabeth what?
Elizabeth?
No, Manny's gone, Anthony Arias resigned,
I was wondering what happened to him.
Oh,
and only
yeah.
about a month and a half ago. I'm sorry if I
Because
didn't
I
announce
was his
that.
mentor, I
No,
haven't
it
heard
was.
from him.
It wasn't
Ah,
in
you
the,
say.
I know, what did I do now?
How'd you meant it, Pat?
Good job.
Erica
So
Ben-
what happened, Trace?
Erica Benson have resigned
You
as
would
I'm
janitor.
sorry, who else?
Erica Benson,
Erica
Yeah,
is
she was-
co-chair.
he was
she
the
resigned
co-chair.
janitor, that's why we have
The
Devin.
transportation committee knocked her right out.
Right out.
Yeah, it's about to knock me out.
We're due for new members in April, right?
Yeah,
New
right.
members come in April, I think.
About April, May,
Yeah.
She was late last year.
All
She
right,
was
whatever,
so
then
yeah,
soon.
they're working through the process now. And then, God bless him, Tom Blueheart,
Oh
so,
my God.
4.
How's
So-
his family doing? I mean,
They're coming along.
how can you be doing, right? Yeah.
By the way, Jill asked me, and I went to the borough president. She asked me, it was too late, but she said, I'd like to take Tom's position. And I said,
Huh.
I would be happy with that.
Oh,
I went to the borough president, she's past the deadline of giving it. But, so what we looked at was, if there's any openings after this round, literally the day after, they can then open it up for her. So I'm hoping to see that happen.
That's great, good for
Alright.
her, that's
That's
awesome,
nice.
that's wonderful.
Can I ask completely off topic, but just been,
Yeah.
I just is on my mind, and I want to ask, because every time I'm in this room, I feel this way. Is there some way to bring back, at one point we had a large map of this, you know,
Oh, yeah.
beyond my push for the comprehensive
We did
plan. In
have
the
one.
meantime, it'd be really
Yeah, it was
helpful
over here.
if we could have a large map
The
of
mayor's
our
office
community
sold
board.
it for the resiliency.
Should we get one?
They
for
what?
the-
You know, I just something we should.
By the way, that chair, we're gonna have to, we need that chair
Wait,
now.
I think it would
Yeah.
help us all. It seems like something.
We used to use that map
A
a lot,
lot, so I just.
to know where we were and.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know where
Do you want
that,
to,
you know what?
what a Google
Pull it out, the
map
map
or
is
like
in
I don't
a?
care what you do, just get the damn map up there again.
Listen, I'm
I'll
having
get you the damn map, it's across the hall.
Good, I'll pay for it.
thank you all for coming out.
Thank you.
eBay wasn't taking any
Spend more
bids.
We're watching live.
Bye, Columbia journalism student.
So, young lady.
Patrick.
Yes, ma'am.